Can stage drama and passion restore our faith in existence? The 22-year-old you are about to meet certainly thinks so. Indeed, he has even written a theatre play about it. My guest is the man behind In His Own Shadow and is keen to discuss the craft of crafting a story. How does he overcome the challenges of writing, and how does he kill his darlings? Putting his own play in context, he will also discuss the authors who spur him in his own writing, taking a look at Sophocles' Antigone and Edmond Rostand's Cyrano de Bergerac. Henrik Abrahamsen, welcome to the Cave of Pillars.
Thank you very much.
Or I should say, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me back.
Because we, in a reversed order of events, you appeared in the Dark Flame first.
Yes.
And we found out that you're able to speak, also in English, so we wanted to have you back. But for those who haven't seen that yet, just a little short recap, like typical bio thing. Who are you and why are you?
Well, so I'm a 22-year-old philosopher and playwright. I've always loved writing, always loved film, and was just from a very, very young age, I was always interested in making film. And I think I decided around the age of 14 or 13 that I wanted to direct movies and write movies. And then as I became older, I started becoming involved in philosophy, and I met a philosophy teacher, and he became my mentor. And the philosophy he was talking about was objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy, which got me into objectivism. So that's been going on for 5.5 years. So I do philosophy lecturing. I go around a little bit on debates and giving lectures on objectivism, and then my main thing is to write. So while I initially planned and still plan to write movies, theater was a very easy and accessible first step. Yeah. It's easier to write a play per se, or it's easier to get a play produced than it is to get a movie produced. So, and also there's a lot of accessible theater out there. We have 2,500 years of theater where you can learn the craft of how to actually write a plot. So reading all of that, you can read through several plays a day and just get a lot of inspiration on how to actually write. And starting with theater, you can easily go from theater to movies. It's not as easy to go from, say, long novels to movies. But if you learn how to write, essentialize. I mean, that's the key to theater, I think. It's very essentialized because you can only do it. It has to be a few hours that you can perform a play. So you have to be able to communicate something very intense and dramatic in just a short time. So theater offers this essentialized drama that is very easy or very powerful to learn from and to be inspired by, because then you can make your own plays, and then it's very easy to make your own movies as well in the future. And I started with theater and intend to do that for a little while and then go over to movies. So that's who I am and why I am.
Right. Why you exist at all.
That's why I exist, yes.
Yeah. So but speaking of that, so your general outlook on life, you wanted this painting by Caspar David Friedrich. We got to borrow the actual original from the museum.
Oh, very nice. I can tell.
Right. Why did you choose that?
Well, Ayn Rand talks about in the Romantic Manifesto that an artist has a sense of life, or people as such have a sense of life. And that is sort of our base view of existence, our most fundamental view of existence. How we view life. Is life good? Is life bad? Is the world a good place? Is the world a rich place, a place to achieve your values, or is it just lost and bleak and doomed to tragedy from the beginning? And I have a very, very strong sense of life, which reflects a lot in this image, I think. It's a lot of people say that there's religiosity in this image. I don't see that at all. There's something about the man dressed very nice, standing very powerfully on the edge of this hill, just looking out into the landscape. Something very powerful about that, very inspirational, is adventurous. It appeals very much to me. And because when I look at that picture, it feels like who I am. I feel like I am that man standing on the top of this hill, looking just out at the world and seeing it as a wonderful challenge that I'm ready to take on. So that's why I chose this painting today, because it reflects a lot the spirit that you'll find in me, and probably the spirit that you'll find in my work, in my play.
Right, and that's exactly it. So it's not that the what's the German title? Well, it's the Wanderer in
Above the Sea of Fog.
Above the Sea of Fog. That's right. So it's not that it pertains specifically to the discussion as such, but one thing we are going to talk about is what kind of sense of life is expressed in whatever you write, and you have to be aware of that, because if not, you just what's in your head comes out through your hands.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
You have to be aware of that.
Very. Yeah.
So I think that's a good introduction of who you are. We obviously you modeled this one. But tell us now about, I want to get right to your play, because it's not very often that you don't have too many plays being written, I guess.
No.
Because
I think you have a lot of plays being written, but a lot of bad plays being written today.
Yes, and I guess it's what makes it stand out in a sense is that, well, to write for movies, that's one thing, because then you're in a storytelling industry.
Yes.
But once you're writing a play, you're sort of working within the high culture art segment, where the whole idea of a drama, that it should be dramatic, is not exactly in vogue anymore.
No.
So give us the elevator pitch and describe what is your story about, first of all, so we get the actual just action, and then we can dig into it. So
the essential, the essence of the action in this play is about a passionate writer who has to write under a fraud's name to save the woman he loves from the consequences of a crime she has committed. That's very much the essence of, or that is the essence of the action involved. So it's about a passionate author, a young man who is working. First of all, it's set in a dystopian future. It's set
150 years into the future.
150 years into the future. In a world where man has kind of lost the spirit. So it's just sort of, it's vaguely described in the beginning, just to kind of give you the atmosphere of what this world has become. So it is our world 150 years into the future, if we continue on this sort of, I guess you could say, anti-passionate path that we're on now, where art is sort of dying out. So art is completely dead in this. Drama is dead. Everything beautiful is dead in this world. It just doesn't exist anymore. And we have gone down technologically as well. There's no more cars, no more driving. People are very poor. They dress very poorly in this play. So there's a young theater group, or a group of actors who want to try and restore this somehow. And then you have two very, very passionate, the kind of leading passionate characters in this play, and probably in this world. And that is Francis, the main character, and the woman he loves, Roxana. And Roxana is very depressed because of this world, because her passion is drama, her passion is art, and she wants to live that out. She wants to use her life, or she wants to lead her life in a dramatic way. She's an actor, she's passionate about that. But she sees that it's impossible in this world, because first of all, every great play of the past has disappeared long ago. There's nothing new being written. So she is just depressed and basically lost the spark to live. And Francis has seen this for a long time, and being passionate about the same things himself, he has taken upon himself to try and rediscover this. So as the play begins, Francis finishes what is the first play he has written, and it's remarkable because he says this might actually be good. I mean, we have gone 150 years now without anything, and now maybe it's back. Unfortunately, he discovers that Roxana has committed a crime. She has stolen a huge sum of money. She's basically stolen all the money the theater had, trying to buy plays from a group of some authors who claimed to be good authors and weren't. and as he discovers this, the manager of the theater, the one who has sort of come down as a saving angel and given all this money to the theater, he discovers this and thinks that it's Francis who has committed this crime. So Francis sees that if this was to be discovered, Roxana would be thrown out, and then he has also found a suicide letter that she has written. So he sees that if my fight was to get her back into life, I have the chance here now, but if she gets thrown out of the theater, our chances are wasted completely. So then she'll most likely end her own life, because then she doesn't see anything. So he takes it upon himself or he takes the guilt of the crime upon himself. He says that it was I who did it. And William then suggests that we can't allow the truth of this to get out there, because if people know that you stole this money, they won't stand for it. So if we said that I wrote this play, then you can remain innocent. So that is what they do. So throughout the play, Francis writes his plays under the name of William, the antagonist. And as this happens, Roxana, the woman Francis loves, begins falling in love with William instead, because he has now the artistic brilliance that Francis once thought. So that is the sort of basic situation. I mean, elaborate situation of the plot.
Yeah.
That's how it plays out from there.
Yeah. Right. And then it's a question of well, first of all, how did you get to the idea?
Well, I've had a lot of ideas over the years, and none of them really struck me as powerful enough to really want to pursue. But a few years ago, I saw a documentary about a guy who claimed that Francis Bacon had written the works of William Shakespeare, which I found out was a somewhat known conspiracy theory. And I watched the documentary, and it was very, exciting. It's mysterious, and it's about, things happening way back. And, claiming that such a influential author as William Shakespeare was secretly written by another brilliant man at that time really gets like, wow, this is interesting. So for many months, actually, I spent time reading into this and watching all the documentaries and stuff. I don't really buy into it. I did back then. I don't really buy into it anymore. But the essence of that, just the situation of a man writing art or writing plays for someone else to give out under their name is very interesting, because it opens all sorts of questions. The first one being why? Why would you do that? If you have these abilities, why would you not give this out yourself? Why would you not take pride in that? So there was just something very mysterious about this situation. Like it's basically a lie. You're letting someone else lie and get the credit for what you have done. So I sat there and I wrote this. I said, okay, a man takes credit for a play or a work that he did not write himself. And then the process starts, because now you have an interesting base. This is something that could be very interesting to see. Where do you take it from here? And it was just, why? Why would someone do this? And not the first thing, but it came to my mind. I wrote a lot of different suggestions for why this situation could occur.
Like just brainstorming?
Yeah, basically brainstorming. This is the brilliant thing about The Art of Fiction from Ayn Rand, is that she says, if you have something, just to start asking questions. Yeah. Why, how, what, and so on, so on. Yeah. And you can find the interesting answers to these questions that you're coming up with. So a man is letting someone else take credit for his own work. Why? And then it struck me, maybe it's because of a woman that both or one of them loves. Maybe it's for the sake of that. And then, that was like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. Now we have like a triangle drama, and now we can start really building on this. So I discarded the Shakespeare, Francis Bacon theory. Originally I thought maybe I could just make a play about that, where I actually have Francis Bacon, I have William Shakespeare being characters, and I have all the things that were taking place in the documentary. I could take that into a plot. And that would probably be a very interesting plot. But I wanted to make something more universal than that, something more timeless, more like a general conflict. And then it started shaping into the plot that I have now, where, and then there were other questions on the way there. like, okay, who are these different people? Like, who is the artist? Who is the fraud? And why are they the way that they are? And who is the woman? And why does he have to give up his own work in the name of someone else? So asking all these questions started producing more and more interesting answers, at least to me. So that's when I eventually, after doing this for many months, I mean, it took a long time before I got the idea. And when I started actually working on the idea, it probably took me almost, I think, 9 or 10 months until I had the complete structure of the plot.
Just working with
the plot.
Not really writing lines, or
I was writing a bit of lines,
yeah,
but not too much, because I needed, and this is very individual.
But it's not like I didn't know where it came from.
No. Relax. It was, I mean, I wrote a few lines of dialogue every now and then,
yeah,
but it was more like I need to have every single element linked together logically.
Thrust of the whole.
Yes, I need to have the power of everything before I can start writing.
Yeah.
And after all these months, when I finally sort of like put the last dot on the I, when I actually had the last element of the plot, I started writing Act 1, and it took me, I think, less than a week to write the whole of Act 1. And then I sort of, okay, now I need to kind of work a little bit on Act 2, wrote out Act 2 in just a few days, the same with Act 3. So it was an enormous amount of work around writing the actual dialogue, because I just needed, because it is convoluted, this play, the plot, because there's lies going around, there's secrets, things that this character knows and doesn't know that's dependent on what this character knows and doesn't know. Had you written a more simple plot, then this probably would have been easier if you don't have all the, but the sort of, I think the power in this play, or at least this play is selectively, is willfully complicated, in that there is something interesting in a convoluted drama where people don't know things and other people don't know things, and someone's sitting on more truth than the others, and you have lies and secrets going around. So I had to link up all those elements together, and then I could start writing the actual thing.
Right.
And then having to do several rewrites, because this is the first time I was ever writing a play. The
Right.
first draft was pretty bad.
No, you don't say.
It took probably three or four drafts.
I want to read that first draft.
That first draft was really something else. But I think it had the power of the thing that is the best things about the play as it stands now were still present in the first draft. The sort of powers, like the most powerful moments of
Like
when
the major scenes?
Yeah, when the secrets are revealed and stuff like that. These things were there, and they were good, but not really in execution. I mean, the dialogue was very weird. I tried going for a very old-fashioned style of writing, because I've been almost only reading very classical plays written hundreds of years ago. So that language was way more natural to me than just writing normally. And then I got feedback from my editors saying, no one talks like this. You have to write this the way people actually talk. Because it is...
Well, then again, it's 150 years into the future. And if you read that play in 200 years, it still says 150 years into the future.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But it was basically, I mean, had I written written it nicely with actual beautiful language, then it probably would have been better. But being my debut play, it wasn't that good. The first draft, the language was pretty like clunky and difficult to work your way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about unpack the actual process. I hate that word because it's an arty word, the process. You're not supposed to get anywhere, just a process. But I mean, there is a process.
There is a process.
There is a way of working with this. So,
yes.
And I'm really interested in the juicy details about some things that didn't work at all, and how do you solve it, and just the fact that like how do you land on this and this many characters, or take them whatever direction you want, because it's just interesting to hear how you've been working with it.
Yeah. So I mean, there is I have plenty of like stories and episodes to like talk about regarding this. So there were three main characters originally. It was the artist, the original writer Francis.
Yeah.
Then I knew I needed the villain, the antagonist, and then I knew I needed the motivation, which was the woman that he loves. And then I sat and I was like, can I have only these 3 characters? I feel like I need a few more characters.
Even you started just with those 3?
Started just with those 3.
Oh.
Yeah. But as you're writing the plot, and you know, because I knew where I wanted to get to. From the beginning, I knew what the climax was going to be. It was going to be that the truth was revealed on stage, on performing the final piece in front of the big theater stage. I knew this is where the climax will happen. This is where
when they're making their success, basically.
Yes. Because that is
spoiler alert.
I mean, because that is the most dramatic. If they had only, if the truth had been revealed in like a rehearsal stage in front of no people, it's like,
what do we do now?
All right, great. Now we go home and live another day. But so I knew from the beginning this could be really intense if the truth is revealed here. So I knew the situation, I knew the basis of the situation, and then I knew the climax where I wanted to get to. Now I had to work out, how will the climax actually look? How will it play out? And how will I get there? That was sort of the main that was the process, if you will, of working on the plot. How do I get there? It was also a challenge of how do I actually establish the main conflict? I mean, how do you get to the point where you have to give up your own work in order to save someone else? Because I knew there was going to be blackmail involved. Because William blackmails Francis into having him write his plays under his own name. And I thought, so this is one of the things I sat and thought about, like, okay, what could the leverage in this blackmail be? Is he just going to say, if you don't write under my name, I will make your life hell? I mean, you could do that, but it wouldn't be very dramatic. It would just be like, oh, okay.
Too obvious to...
Too obvious to... I mean, it doesn't carry a lot of weight. And I was like, what is he going to do? Is he going to, like, try and kill you constantly? Or is he going to... I thought maybe the villain is some sort of influential man in the theater business. Maybe he could ensure that he would never get another job.
But then if theaters are not on a very high standing, why would there be a guy who's rich on theater?
Exactly. So and that's the thing. You go through all of these, you try to answer these questions that need answers in all sorts of different ways, and you, in 99% of the time, it will be like, no, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This is not dramatic enough.
Because of logical...
It's because of logical things.
Inconsistency.
Yeah. Or just that this could work, but it's not powerful enough.
Yeah.
It's not that much fun.
So either logical inconsistency or lack of drama.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And as a writer, you want to write something that has a lot of drama.
Yeah.
So what I thought is, okay, maybe the leverage, maybe Francis has committed some sort of crime. Because then it makes more sense that he has some sort of leverage on him.
Yeah.
Like if he has committed a crime, he can say, all right, if you don't give me your play or say that it was I who wrote it, then I will ensure that you're prosecuted. And I thought, okay, now we're getting somewhere. This could be dramatic. But then I had all sorts of other questions, like why would Francis commit a crime? What sort of crime has he committed? And then I thought maybe it's not Francis who has committed the crime. Maybe it's Roxana that has committed the crime. So he has to cover up for her in order to save her. So now you have a situation where the hero has to lie. He has to throw dirt at himself in order to save the woman he loves. And I loved that idea because that's dramatic. If you love someone and the only way you can save that person from doom is if you make things hell for yourself, that's dramatic. Because then you have to basically sacrifice yourself in order to not see the woman you love kill herself or become unhappy. So there's an impossibility in that conflict. That's just like if you see that on stage and you're like, oh, like what can he do? And you start sympathizing, especially if it's a sympathetic character. Then you start, you hope that he gets out of this.
Yeah.
So that was one way I established the main conflict. Like, okay, she has committed a crime, and then you have to answer the question: what kind of crime has she committed? Has she murdered someone? Has she stolen something? Has she done some sort of fraud? And then I thought, okay, everything should be linked together. So if she has just done some sort of crime that has nothing to do with the theater at all, if she just mugged someone on the street, then you still have that situation where she has committed a crime, but it's still just a mugging on the street. Some other.
How does that
person.
relate to Francis letting William take the name?
Exactly.
Or as the author.
And that's not in Roxana's character.
Yeah.
That's not the character I wanted. I did not want...
Some random mug robbing someone on the street.
And how do you even say that? And like that doesn't integrate at all.
Yeah.
So she has to have committed some sort of crime that goes into the like all other things that goes into the theater. But also I don't want her to be dishonest. I don't want her to be like a crook. I don't want her to actually have the personality of a criminal. So could she have perhaps committed an honorable crime? And that's how I came up with it. Yes, it was a desperate attempt to try to save her own life, to find some sort of inspiration out there, which was that she stole all the money the theater had, tried buying scripts, and failed. So this is the brilliant process where you have to get somewhere. I know I have to have a crime, and I know the premises for the crime. I know that the crime has to serve as some sort of leverage for the blackmail, but I also know that the crime has to maintain the sort of beautiful and passionate character that I already know I want to have. So then you have a framework for the answer you can provide. And you could probably come up with a different answer as well, a different crime she has committed, which could be dramatic, but I chose this. So I had, all like in every plot point, or every element of the plot in my play has some sort of story like this. Like how I knew I needed this. I knew I needed to arrive at this point. I know I need to arrive at this climax. And how do we make that happen without breaking the logical structure of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Which is difficult. Very, very difficult. Because it's such a big context and you're like, suddenly you have a really good idea. Like, oh yes, this would be amazing. This would be amazing to include because this could be so dramatic. And then you're like, oh no, like this breaks with the other thing I need to have.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, and then you have to like kill your own darling. You have a really good idea. Then you just have to slay it. Like, it's a good idea. I have to take it out because it doesn't fit with the whole thing. So it's a brutal process of discrimination and inclusions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. So basically, once having done all of that work up front, you spend like 2-3 weeks just getting at least the first draft on paper, right? And then you start really working into it.
So what I did was I wrote the plot out. I wrote it just as a synopsis.
Yeah.
This happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And then as you write that out, you come to a place where you don't know what will happen, leave that blank, and just write what you know will happen. And then now you actually see on paper the things that have to link up.
Right. That's interesting because that's kind of how I work also when I paint.
Yeah.
So I always tell my students, okay, you're not getting the nose, but you don't know what it is. Well, then you work on the eye, and then the nose gets worse and worse because the eye gets better and better. And then you say, oh my God, why didn't I see that before? And then you can fix it,
Yeah.
So you just sort of, whatever, this is me, how I'm thinking, where you see that there's a biggest lack, you just go all in there, and then once you have the totality, that will spill out or affect the other parts. So.
Yeah. And that's if you know, the key thing here is to know what is it you actually want to do. What do you want to write a play about? And for me, it was the climax. I knew I wanted this type of climax that I have in my play, where the truth of the author is revealed on stage to the woman he loves in a dramatic fashion. And I knew that the play was supposed to be about passion, about passionate art. Because it was made originally this play was actually set in our time. But I was sort of criticizing the modern art movement, saying that all art today is just bad and stuff like that. And when my editor read it, he assumed that it was put in the future because I was just worsening today's situation. Or I was talking about it the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
And And then I thought, okay, maybe, this could be a cool stylistic choice. Just put it in the future, in the dystopian future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's there's no like straightforward...
No comparison beyond that.
There's no straightforward line in working on a plot.
Yeah.
You start, and then you have something, and you build on it, and then something doesn't work, you have to take that out, and then you have to include something.
Yeah. And that's interesting, because then that's sort of a coincidence, what you described just there.
Yeah.
But because you have this clear idea what we're talking about here, you can use the coincidence because you see that actually it could work.
Yeah.
Not because it's a coincidence, but because it can work.
But because you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's the key here. If you just wanted to write and you don't know really what you want to write, kind of like modern artists, modern writers, who end up writing basically kind of meaningless things because they don't have a clear view of what do I actually want to communicate. Or what do I want a dramatic conflict? Do I want a suspenseful climax? Something like that. And you need this picture. At least I needed this picture in my head. What I wanted to get to, and then how do I get there?
Yeah. So you get causality, not casuality.
Exactly. Yeah. Causality.
Yeah.
Every scene has to presuppose the scene before.
Yeah.
And so on, so on.
Yeah. Right. How do you remember we talked about books on screenplay, screenwriting, and I think it's Blake Snyder who talks about how each scene should end with a plus or minus, and the one should be more dramatic than the last one. And did you think about things like that, purely structural things like that?
What does that mean? A plus or minus?
That it should end with something negative or positive each scene. Or start with minus, end with plus, or there's some kind of transition through the scene.
Right. I didn't think of it in terms of that. It was basically each scene needs to serve something new to the plot.
Yeah.
It needs to take us somewhere we haven't been before.
Right.
And I know that the play or the situation will get much worse for the main character as we approach the climax. So it wasn't really a plus-minus thing. It was more like a minus-minus thing. Like mostly each scene will end with the situation being worse for the main character than it previously was. And then maybe there's some glimmer of hope here, and then that is robbed from him in the next scene or something like that. But structural-wise, every scene has to have a crucial function. If it doesn't serve a function to the plot all over, throw it out. It doesn't need to be there. And then the next scene has to be based only off of what has happened before, and then it's pieced on like that.
Yeah.
So that's how the scenes were kind of structured. It needs to actually build the plot further.
Yeah.
Right.
And how about this situation? Did you come to the situations where you saw that things quite simply didn't work, or that things were sort of a dead end, or has there been any really major changes, like completely taking things away, or?
There were a few. There were a few things. Originally, the climax was supposed to be, or way more originally, because in the documentary about Shakespeare and Francis Bacon, the guy who is observing this theory, he is a cryptographer. So he thinks that you can decode the first folio of Shakespeare into seeing that it was actually Francis Bacon who wrote it, that he coded himself in. So just the first months, I thought, this is how I'm going to have the truth revealed, somehow. That he codes himself into this play. And that's what I wanted for a really long time. And I saw this will just be, or at least I won't make it work. It doesn't seem like it will work. So then I knew, all right, maybe we'll have something happen on the scene. And then I thought for a very long time, probably a longer time, that he will write himself in the play that they are performing on stage in the climax, so that when the woman he loves, the actress, performs this play and says the certain words he has put in there, she will understand the truth. That was also an idea for a very long time, and one that I really liked. And then I was trying to make that work, and it was really difficult. So I thought maybe he has put himself on a certain part of the stage, so that when she looks at him, it makes sense with what she's saying. and something like that, or that he sits in the audience and that he's instructed her to look a specific direction when she says this, and then she will look at her, something like that. Didn't work. I couldn't make it work. So I came up with an alternate solution, basically, that there was supposed to be a knife involved. And I think I also mentioned this the last time I was here, was also a way of making the plot more dramatic. Because in the climax, there was never any, because once again, spoiler alert, the villain tries to murder the hero in the end. And in a very like classical theatrical way, he switches out a real knife for a fake knife, or a fake knife for a real knife, which the actor is going to use to stab himself on the scene. And then I sort of realized, okay, I can have now, he can try to kill him on stage, and then we can have some sort of reveal where he knows he's probably going to be killed, and then he smashes the knife into the ground instead. Now, like, there's sort of chaos, like what is happening, and then it's sort of revealed just through dialogue here, and that just the fact that the villain knows he is lost in desperation kind of reveals the truth. So that was, so these are not changes per se, but I mean, I started with an original idea and then I had to change it multiple times. Right. And that's a painful process. Yeah. Or, you know, I want this, but then you see it probably won't work, so I need to try something else. But I'm very happy with the result of the climax. It's one of my proudest moments in this play. Yeah,
I agree, because it's a situation where this switching of the knife, and he knows that well, this is getting into the very much to the details. Yeah. Actually, Francis sort of knows what's going to happen.
Yep.
He gets to know it not well, by chance in some way.
Yep.
And then,
well, not by chance.
Well, yeah, but it's a kind of a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it's misunderstanding
going on. And then when he stabs it instead in the floor, and then William goes crazy and tries to stab him.
Yes.
And then it becomes quite clear that maybe it wasn't William. And that's something that you do quite skilled there, where you have this what it's called, slip of the tongue. Where William starts talking about, but who wrote that play?
Yes. So this was this was one of the most fun things to write, because now everything is coming together.
Yeah.
And you see, like, you know that this is going to happen, but you haven't seen it yourself yet.
Yeah.
So writing this, I knew that William, the villain, was going to kind of reveal it himself in the end. And then having that, and then also having that worry for the audience, that they know from Act 2 that that he's going to try to murder Francis on stage, and they know how, but they also know that Francis doesn't know how. He only knows that he's going to be murdered. So you're waiting for what you worry might be the inevitable.
Right.
And then it sort of plays out in a way. And then this is something Peikoff says now I'm not sure I've achieved this mastery, but Peikoff says in his play in his course that we will discuss later, that the true test of a great playwright is to see if he can write the inevitable into the climax, where the audience doesn't know, but sees after that this was the only thing that could have happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically.
Right.
Now I'm not sure if I passed the test. You would have to ask Leonard Peikoff, but I think I, at least as a debut play came pretty close.
And how do you work with? I mean, you sort of have to work in images when you're writing a play.
Yes.
Because you're not describing, it's the show don't tell, preferably, which is the sort of the guiding principle.
Yep.
So how do you strip down and make the character say the essential thing without explaining everything the character wants the audience to know?
Well, you need if you're in my situation, you would need an editor who's aware of that, because my second draft or something was this. It was the characters just explaining everything, what they felt, what they were going to do. Yeah. My editor read it. He was like, this is melodramatic. They're saying everything that they want to do, and you're using them. Yeah. You're using your characters. Yeah. You're almost abusing them to say what you want them to say, instead what they would actually want to say.
Yeah.
And then you sort of, he just said, you have to trust your audience. they have to act the way that's natural for them to do and say what's natural for them to do. And then if that's right, then the audience should understand what it is they want to do. And also it's more interesting if you don't actually know everything. Like if you don't know that this character has this motivation or this character has this motivation, but they instead have to figure it out. Like one of the very big changes that my editor helped me make was that the antagonist is actually not obviously the villain in the beginning.
Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah.
In my first draft, the villain is like a classical Disney villain, like rubbing his hands, laughing evilly, like saying from the beginning, like, I want attention, I'm gonna like blackmail you into giving me this because I deserve this honor. And then he read it and was like, this is just kind of stupid. I mean, no one is like this. You wouldn't be that obvious.
I'm evil, in case you didn't know.
That was basically my character. And he said it would be much more dramatic if the villain actually seems like a good guy in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like give him good reasons for the blackmail.
Yeah.
And that's how it sort of came to be, that he has this sympathetic, when he suggests the sort of exchange, that he himself takes the credit for the play, that he sort of has good reasons for it. Like the rest of the theater, they won't accept this. If we don't do this, then we can't perform this play. And then he seems like a sympathetic character, and we're like, okay, he might be right. But then slowly you give these little hints that there's something off.
It starts getting the attention, starts seeing.
Yeah, and then he says a few things here and there, like especially at the end of a lot of scenes, he has like a one-liner or one sentence he says, and you're like, that's a little off.
Yeah.
but we'll let it go for now. And then slowly but surely, and I think the moment he truly reveals like his full evil is when he decides that he wants to kill Francis. Then you understand this is not about anything else. He wants the attention and he wants the love of the people. And anyone standing in his way, he's gonna take them out.
Yeah, and you're using that situation where Francis then is writing his second play.
Yep.
Which includes a suicide by the character that he ends up playing. And when he shows that to William, I guess William gets the idea because he of course, Francis is very agitated, forgets the fake knife. Yeah. And then William comes with it, and it's not the fake knife later when they're actually going to perform it. But I mean,
the play that actually interesting to mention, the play that Francis writes in the play was much more detailed in the first draft. I mean, now in the play, he summarizes it in like a few sentences.
That has to hurt to get to that point.
Oh, believe me, I had pages of this. This was one of the things I wasted so much time on, like thinking about the end product, because I was basically writing another play that I had to put in my play. Yeah. So I had already worked on this plot and struggled with that, and now I thought I have to struggle with another plot. I have to write something, and then I wrote character names for the people in this play, and then in the scene where Francis now explains, or very shortly explains, what his play is about, was much longer originally. And he was talking about characters, and he was explaining them in detail, and he was talking about the plot, and there was all sorts of things in the plot, and I'm kind of happy with that still anyway, because it included some things that I liked. But then my editor was also like, this is too much. This is just too many details. You have to cut some of this out. And it's not important. It's not really essential. The most important thing is that he's writing a play which is reflecting his own situation. So then that was one of the points where I cut a lot of things out. And that hurt. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it must have hurt.
Yeah, it did.
But it's interesting that like you say, the development of William, the almost said factory owner, the theater. Well, he's not the owner, but he's the
manager.
Manager, yeah. Because in the beginning, when Francis finds that letter and Roxana admits that she has stolen that money and also took the key to the theater and returns it, then when William comes in, he honestly thinks that it is Francis that stole the money. So he, in some ways, and William is Francis standing there with his own play, and just gets shocked by that whole accusation and says, "Oh, but we have something here," and he doesn't say that he wrote it. So William never knows.
No.
So in that sense, it makes sense, that he could say something like that. You can understand you're making a business somehow, and your employee steals from you. And it's like, okay, but this might save us, but then we have to do it like this. That's different from knowing that you wrote it, and I'm going to mess you up. I'm going to, that's a different story. But he slides into it, like you say.
And that's where this...
And more so towards the end, where he runs out on stage to actually finish the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes convoluted, because you have lies built upon lies in this play, where he has to lie about the fact that he himself wrote the play, and then he has to lie about his motivations, and there's all sorts of.
But it's interesting. It's not really a threat from William in the beginning there.
No. Well, it's some. I mean, he says if you.
But not to give up your ownership to the play.
No.
There's no threat like that.
No, it's only like the crime.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know.
Yeah.
In the original idea, he knew. That I sort of assumed that he would know.
Yeah.
But then it's more interesting if he doesn't know.
Yeah. Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
It's much more fun.
I keep coming back to what Robert McKee writes about in Story.
Yeah.
If the story is about what the story is about, you're fucked. You cannot be just that. Oh, okay. No, it was actually Francis Bacon, not Shakespeare, and then it becomes like a history lesson.
Yep.
And it cannot just be, oh, I know that you wrote it, but I'm going to dominate you, and that's the story. And there's no other story but that. That's it doesn't work. I mean, you have to have at least two stories going on. I mean, it's depending on, like, if you talk about painting or drama, where it's a bit different, but it can't just be one story.
No, it has to be deep.
And how do you then work with these different strata, not one not being more important than the other, or the one that is most important not being swallowed by the other? So, like, how do you deal with the competition there?
Well, it's basically, or you should know what is the most important thing. I knew what was the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then if you have other things, like if you have subplots, or you have other elements which are kind of not directly the main conflict or the main plot, then they have to stem from and express the same conflict and the same thing that you already want to express.
Yeah.
Prioritizing these things is like, I have no method for doing it. It's just like seeing what works.
When you're working with it.
When I'm working with it. It's just like, you have to see if it works. I mean, I would arrive at places where it was like, now I'm putting too much focus on this. I have to cut back a little here. And then we have
to notice that you're going down a rabbit hole, or?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. You start, I mean, if it's just like, if you start reading and it feels like now we're really telling another story.
Then, like with that other play.
Yeah, exactly. Then you just have to, there's one thing we're doing here. If it doesn't serve this one purpose, like, get it out.
And I guess it was a conscious choice also, this thing about, like, there's a couple of things that I noticed that you use sort of as sort of rhetorical technique, or what you would call it, when it happens several times that they are speaking to each other, and they are saying something that is just speaking from one to the other, but it still has a totally a double meaning.
Yes.
Those same words, right?
Yeah, that was intentional. If it's a place I think you are talking to or talking about, that was basically. I mean, you want to juice up what you like, the story you have, and if you can put things like that in there, where the audience knows something that the characters don't know. For instance, the audience are they know everything in this play. They are not sort of concealed by lies. They know all the details in the play, which most of the characters don't even And specifically, they know the struggles of Francis, and they know that they know the sacrifice or the price he is paying in order to save Roxana. So when he says, for instance, or when he's talking about Roxana, especially to his friend Victor, he's almost always sort of talking from his heart, like talking about his own situation. But Victor doesn't realize this.
Yeah.
And as an audience, seeing there, and you know the pain that Francis is going through, and then you know that Victor doesn't know the pain, and then if Francis expresses this pain without Victor picking up on it, it's sort of like, you want his friend to understand the situation. So it's just methods you put in there to just make it worse for the audience, like to make it more intense for them. I mean, that is really what you want to do. If you want to make people be invested in your story, you put a good guy out there who wants to achieve something great or wants to fight for something good that you can relate to. And the more you plunge him into the dirt, the worse it becomes for the audience, because you want to see him succeed. And when you have scenes like this where there's just a lot of pain and where people around aren't understanding the situation, the audience are like frustrated because they want the people to understand the situation. They want it to be good, but then you put them through this. You put the audience through this drama and through this sort of pain and frustration in order to relieve it in the end, if that is what you're going for.
Yeah. It's also sort of a similar thing you do with the plays Francis writes, illustrating what is the actual topic of your play at the same time. Like, for example, in that final scene, or
exactly
the whole climax.
And that's an integrating element as well.
Yeah.
Like if he was writing a play and it was about something completely different.
It goes out.
Then it's uninteresting.
Yeah.
If you can, and I think that's one of the things I'm very proud of with this play, is I feel like I have almost all of the elements. I know that there are some elements. I mean, it is a debut play. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I know that the majority of the elements and the important things are integrated into the whole.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, at least not intentionally anything, which doesn't really have a significance to the thing. So if I was having my character actually write a play and it was about something completely different, it would just be strange.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be dramatic. But if he is now expressing his own pain that no one else in the play kind of understands, then you're getting the same effect where the audience is like, oh, like he has this pain in him and it doesn't resolve and things like that. So the more integrated, the better.
Yeah, right. So how long did that, from you really started working with it to you finished it, what time frame were we talking about there?
I started writing the play on Christmas Eve 2021, and then I finished it on the 4th of July this year.
Okay.
So 2 significant dates. So it took me 1.5 years from I started writing the play until the play was actually finished.
Right.
And then it took 2 months or something for it to be published.
Well, congratulations. And then people will post a link. People can order their copy. But let's go to sort of the other half, I guess, of the conversation about learning how to write.
Yep.
And I don't know, do you want to start with your Peikoff lecture?
Well, I think it would make most sense. We talked a little bit about the art of fiction the last time I was here.
Yeah.
Now, once again, I couldn't bring it.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it. I ordered it. I didn't pick it up in time, so it was sent back to the United States. But they are both brilliant. They're both courses. They're both based.
Hold it up so people can see it. Hold next to your face.
So this is the course in book form by Leonard Peikoff.
Right.
Where he takes 8 of the greatest plays written in human history, and he analyzes them as literature and philosophy.
Right.
But he bases himself off the sort of terms and tools that Ayn Rand discussed and made in both the Romantic Manifesto and in the Art of Fiction that we discussed. Because in the Art of Fiction, Ayn Rand defines the essentials of creating a plot, and also a little bit about stylizing, but that is not really my focus here today. It's about the creation of plot, and she discusses the different terms in depth, like plot theme, like characters, conflict, all these things. But she just kind of gives you them. And then what Leonard Peikoff does brilliantly is he puts them into practice. So he starts with Antigone from 2,500 years ago, and he works himself all the way up to taking 8 plays of kind of each of the 8 different times and big literary times, and ends with Cyrano de Bergerac. And he also uses actually Ibsen, one of Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, as and he takes the plays he regards as great in the literary sense and in philosophical sense, that they are very philosophical. And it's just, at least to me, there is nothing else that I can really think of that was more inspiring and more helpful than the 8 Great Plays course. Because you just get, he essentializes the thing, like the plots and the progression in these plays to, like there's a concept called plot theme, which is the essence of the action. Where in one sentence, you summarize basically the conflict and the main characters and what the play is about. Not like this play is about love, or this play is about tragedy or betrayal, but what is the actual action? Like what is what is the essence of the action? So for instance, in Antigone, the plot theme is, as he defines it, a young princess defies a powerful king over a moral issue. So now you have the essence of Antigone.
Yeah, right.
It's about that. It's not about more than that. There's a lot more to it, but it's not about anything else. And every word is chosen carefully in order to tell you exactly what it is about. So, and he also demonstrates, he does the same sort of, he gives you the plot themes piece by piece, and also saying how the author perhaps could have constructed the plots when he was making, not that the author necessarily was doing this way, but saying this is how they could have done it. So in terms of Antigone, if your core situation was a farmer defies a powerful king over a moral issue, there wouldn't really be a play. Because if just some sort of peasant stands up to a king, no one cares. You're just gonna sweep, like, get away.
Yeah.
You don't really have a conflict. If you have someone of importance and you have someone of stature who defies a powerful king, now there's actually drama. Because you can't just sweep her away easily, and especially not if you have a personal connection, which there also is in Antigone.
Yeah. And
also, if the king is not, if there's a young princess who defies a peasant, the same thing. There's no conflict here. She will just say, all right, you're doing something wrong, like, get this peasant out of here, we'll get a new peasant. If the king is not powerful, then it's also no drama. Because if you defy just a weak king, you'll just trample over him. So in the plot theme, you get this, you get the essence of the drama, and you see immediately why there is drama here. Because a princess defies a powerful king who won't just let himself be driven over. I mean, he will stand his ground. And also, if it's on a moral issue, like if it's on a practical issue in life, like not whether she wants to bury her brother, or whether this marble should be white or this marble should be gray, is also not very dramatic. So the plot theme, the brilliance of the plot theme is that you get the whole drama in one sentence, and you see immediately why it's dramatic and why it's important. So that's one of the things he discusses, like, how do you get somewhere from nothing? And the plot, you can write a whole thing out of a plot theme, and it's only one sentence, or it can be one sentence. I know
in Save the Cat, Blake Snyder talks about the log line, same thing.
Yeah.
So once you've gotten lost in some entanglement, you go back to the log line and you see, well, that doesn't really relate.
Right.
So, well, then you got back on track.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he goes through these topics, like the plot progression, how we get from the establishment through the rise of the action until the climax. How the different characters are, like what they're motivated by, how deep they are, and stuff like that. And then the climax of the play, like how does things play out? Discusses the theme, how you start more to interpret the work you've read. And then he discusses sort of the more overarching philosophy that is communicated within the play.
Yeah.
And he does this with 8 brilliant plays. And when you read this, it's just like, when you read these plays, it's just, I mean, it's nothing like what is written today. Every piece of literature written today is just like, it's toilet literature. You can read it when you're sitting on the loo. But these things are just so grand, and they're written by such masters of word and character and plot and everything. And it's so dramatic. It's a real thrill to experience the course. Even for people who have no intention of writing, you learn how to actually appreciate classical literature. As a writer, it's even more helpful because you see how the really big masters did it. And then, because if you don't have these tools, like if you just read, say, Cyrano de Bergerac, and you have no concept of like plot theme, conflict, character, and you don't know really what these things are, and then you'll try to write something based off of that, it will be like, oh, okay, what am I doing? It will be difficult.
Yeah.
But if you know now, if you can summarize the action and the drama in one sentence, then you know how you can create drama in one sentence. You need opposing forces, and you need some sort of stakes. That is what an interesting...
That's interesting. So you can come to the situation where you're sort of thinking of a log line, then, as I'm used to saying, in each sentence, to sort of clarify the sentence almost.
Well, not in the dialogue spoken.
Okay.
But just the fact that a log line or a plot theme is one
guides
sentence.
you no matter what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So you can just create a plot theme out of nothing. If you just start with one character, and then there's someone she's opposing or is opposed to. Now you open the world to start writing things. And if you don't have these things, it can be very difficult to arrive at something at all, anything at all, to start the writing process.
Right.
So plot theme for me, and just plot progression and climax and understanding these things was so important. And I used it all the time in writing. Because I had reading these plays, I had written down like elements that I found interesting, how the author treated a character, or how they would introduce a character, or how they would go from one thing to another. And then you sort of have Leonard Peikoff's take on all of these things, analyzing them, making it clear to you what is it that makes this play work. And then you can extract all those things, and you can make just like a summary of the important things that make a great plot or that make a great play. And then you can use that in your own writing.
Yeah.
That is what I did.
Yeah. To get to know certain just key concepts, basically.
Yes.
That I guess doesn't really as such teach you to write, but you can use them to test your own writing.
Yes. Because if you read something that is dramatic, and if your purpose is to write drama, and you read something dramatic, you don't necessarily know why it's dramatic.
Yeah. Because the drama has to be on the pages and not in your head or in your heart.
Yeah.
Because I'm just feeling a lot right now, then it doesn't really work. It just becomes frantic. Right? Yeah. This is something, it goes, you see it in all kinds of disciplines. Everyone has hang-ups and experiences where you really learn something. And one such for me was with the friezes for the mausoleum, the original mausoleum. And there's this sculptor Leocaris, and he has this raging fighting scene in the frieze, several meters wide. And then it looks like complete chaos, but when you look at it, here's a triangle, there's a figure standing there's a triangle, there's a figure standing here, there's sort of geometrical shapes that really solidify the figures. At the same time, like, there's a hurling movement going back and forth, but each sort of separate part is solid as something that's very solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to know these terms in order to structure that drama, so it doesn't just go in all kinds of directions.
It certainly makes it much more easier. And especially if you know, like the thing with integration is so important. You need, like, if you can easily write something and it just is kind of all over the place, like it's not really one thing, but you have drama here and you have drama here and you have drama here. Another thing that Leonard Peikoff says is that all drama in the play needs to stem from and express the one fundamental conflict.
Yeah.
So in Antigone, you have the main conflict, which is Antigone versus Creon, over whether she can bury her brother or not. But it's not only these two that are involved. It's Antigone's sister, and then it's Creon's son, and then also wife. And then there's a link all over here, and there's people opposing each other on all sorts of different ways. Leonard Peikoff says you create a nest of characters that are at each other's throats. And they all stem from...
It's like some rat experiments. You just keep them in the box and see what happens.
But it's, in a way, it's kind of... I mean, that is what you get in the end. You get this sort of... I mean, it's brilliant. You have the main struggle, Antigone versus Creon. And then all these other people get involved as well. And they have some sort of stake in the main conflict, people they love, things they care about. Like Antigone's sister wants to save her own sister. She doesn't have the same idealism herself, but she wants to save her sister from death, from execution, which is what is awaiting her. Creon's son is in love with Antigone, so he obviously doesn't want her to die, but his father doesn't change his decision. So there's a conflict between them. And then it's Creon's wife, because she doesn't want to lose her son. So she will be at Creon's throat as well.
Yeah.
So you have, just from one conflict, people all around, you can start like throwing people in there that are expressing the same thing and making it more dramatic, milking the drama, which is what Leonard Peikoff calls it. You just make the situation worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
More intense.
Yeah.
For the audience.
Right, that's what it's all about, to make it, to get in as many bad news as possible. Kind
of, yes. But you need to have it get somewhere.
Yeah.
And you need all these people to be integrated.
Yeah.
So in Antigone, in the beautiful climax, where Antigone has died, and then Haemon, the son of Creon, kills himself as well. So because of his bad choices, Creon suffers the loss of his son, and then also I think of his wife, who ends up killing herself as well. So everything, it goes out and you build into these just crazy situations where everyone is at each other's throats, then you end up somewhere. And the more beautiful you do that, the better drama it will be and the better experience for the audience.
What do you think about the challenge of, or balancing being too clear and not clear enough? I mean, I constantly think of Henrik Ibsen when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Because in certain senses, he is so clear, it's like screaming in your face, this is what is going on, this is what is going on. But he manages to do it, so it's not like, oh my God, like, yes, we know. You don't think like that, you know?
No.
Because, and one of the best examples, or one good example, the several good examples in The Wild Duck, where Hjalmar shall have this honest talk with his wife. Is my daughter really my daughter?
Yeah.
And then he tells her, I think, to turn the lamp on. And just like a little thing like that. Just a visual explanation of what is going on here metaphysically, or in the dialogue, psychologically in between them. But it's also that other figure there who wants to sort of find the truth about everything, and he talks about being a dog that dives after these wild ducks that go down to the bottom of the lake and bite there and die there.
Yeah.
He brings them up. He wants to do that and save people.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they're saying, "Hey, I would like to be such a dog." And like, "Do you want to be a dog?" "Yeah, I want to be a dog." Like, "Why do you want to be a dog?" So it's a dog. Okay, just blink. I just think how to do something. It has to be clear, but it mustn't be too clear.
Right.
It's like,
how you handle that?
Yeah. Like, maybe this is a unexpected theme to start talking about, but it's...
Oh no, but Yeah, I mean, that is...
because it has to be clear what is going on.
Yeah.
It mustn't be like in your face
right.
clear.
Yeah, I was worried about that at times when writing. I mean, because you want the audience to understand what is going on. And then it's easy to sort of not trust them enough, like I did at times.
Right.
And you sort of think you have to scream in their face, like you said. This is what is going on.
Yeah. But I mean, Ibsen does that.
Yeah.
But it
doesn't seem forced.
Yeah.
Huh. I haven't read too much of Ibsen. I have read that one. It's been a long time. Yeah. But
I reread it because I think that just in terms of the actual psychology between figures, how that works.
Yeah.
Like, okay, once the plot is all there, the structure is all there, you know how things are going to flow. All these little small things when it comes to the dialogue and this thing about putting the lamp on or not putting the lamp on.
Yeah.
The small things that is just on the face of it, just sort of random, or not random, but like everyday movements or everyday sentences that suddenly mean. I mean, like you're doing in that in His Own Shadow, where they're having a conversation and both having a conversation on this level, but there's also another message being given on another level at the same time.
And I had this where I had to dial back because I made things too obvious.
Yeah.
I can't exactly pinpoint where it was, but I've committed this mistake several times, like trying to get something across and then just making it too obvious, where the character is basically saying whatever I want the audience to kind of understand instead of trusting the audience. I think a lot with the emotions, what they're feeling at any moment. Like if I want the audience to know that, okay, now he's in pain, instead of him talking about the fact that he's in pain, have him express that in some sort of natural way.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want him to sit there and just say, I am in pain. But instead you make him say something that makes you, like, for instance, have him answer a question in a little bit like darker way than usual. Yeah. Or perhaps he's a little absent. You see that he's thinking about something else. Yeah. Because that's the way you relate to emotions. Yeah. You don't relate to, if people say, and that's the function of art. That is what Ayn Rand writes about in the Romantic Manifesto. It's showing and not telling. If you have a character say, oh, I'm in pain and I want this and I want that, instead have him like express this through his actions. You can see him like going around and he's holding his head and like something is wrong, and then maybe he's crying or he's grunting at some things, like he hears something and he's like, oh, like, and then you can feel that he's in some sort of pain, and then he indicates, instead of saying, oh, I want this or I want this, have him talk about this in some sort of subliminal way through other means. For instance, in His Own Shadow, in my play, when Francis, the main character, is talking to his friend Victor, like I said, they're very often talking about the sort of main situation. And I don't want Francis to say, oh, I'm in pain, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling this. But I'm being
in pain because I'm being blackmailed by...
Yeah. Oh, it's bad, it's awful. But I want him to, like, maybe he just says some things here and there. For instance, he learns that Roxana is falling in love with William from Victor. And instead of saying, "Oh, that hurts," he's just saying like, "Oh, like of course," like trying to brush it aside or something like that. These are important.
But there's
things.
Something about I can understand that something like that. He's saying that she would fall in love with the author of that play. So he's sort of saying, yes, I concur. I agree with this.
Yeah, he's saying something. I can't remember the line exactly, but he's saying something like, yes, of course she would fall in love with the author. Like that is what makes sense. And that is like, that was a little painful for me to write, because then he knows that he actually would get the love from Roxana had he not fallen into this unfortunate situation. So he knows that what he is doing would get him Roxana, but then now instead he gets this confirmation that what he thought was true, but she's not in love with him. She's in love with someone
he
else.
has it and he is farther away from it than
Yes,
ever.
in a way he gets it, but he does not actually get it. Like he achieves spiritually kind of like the love. He knows, all right, I would have gotten this love by doing this thing. But instead he must see basically his enemy or his nemesis get that love, which is painful, especially because he knows that this is a fraud and he hasn't actually done anything.
Yeah.
And also knowing that he can't do anything about himself. Like if you only had, like that is also another thing, you can't just have him, you need to put him in a situation where he can't tell the truth. Because if there was some sort of blackmail and then there's no reason for him not to say the truth, then that would be unrealistic.
Yeah.
So then you would need to put him in a situation where there's no other option than to shut up.
Yeah, because he cannot just be, I am a guy who likes the truth, and that's the conflict, right?
Yeah. Like if he suddenly said, like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm the author.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. That's an interesting way to resolve everything.
Yeah. And it really goes to trying to make things primal. In some way, that's the sort of the irony of Ibsen, that you talk about his so-called contemporary plays, but they are more timeless than ever.
Yeah.
Because of course it's not a description of the carpets and the palms and all these things. So he can get the basic problem between these people incidentally in that context.
Yeah.
But he needs to go to the essential problem, and that's something we talked with. I talked with Odd Nerdrum about that. This thing about poetry, and what poetry is, and we're talking about how you need to find what is most valuable.
Yeah.
To show that this is very, very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerable was the word, but of course that means it's valuable.
Yeah.
And when you show how vulnerable things are, there's a certain melancholy, or there's a certain sentimentality, obviously, coming in that grips you because it reminds you of what is important in life, right?
Do you have an example of that?
You have it in the Wild Duck with Hedwig committing suicide at the end. Speaking of sacrificing herself, she wants to sacrifice herself because, of course, there's this metaphor between the wild duck and her. Yeah. And so it's saying about if only the wild duck was out of the way, we could be happy here. And then she, as a child, is able to think metaphorically. Right. She shoots herself so her father will be happy.
Oh, that is true. I remember.
Yeah, because she's a burden, because she doesn't know that if she's the daughter or not. And then because...
That's powerful.
Yeah, because he is, of course, one of those people who wants the truth but can't handle the truth. Like that movie with Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, he certainly can't handle that.
That something.
Yeah. And you think about that afterwards, and you think about the damage the wrong word can do to another human being.
Yeah.
Like you know this in your own life too. Like I talked to this one man. He talked about his son who had died in cancer, which of course makes the memory even a bit more bitter. Where he had, like, not thinking, saying something like to his son, like, "Oh, are you stupid or not?" And then afterwards, after some days, the son came to him and said, "Well, am I stupid?" And it's like, no, that's not what I wanted to say. It's like, I'm sorry. And you put that into a play, and it's like, no, oh my God.
That kind of occurs in my play.
Yeah.
Not as dramatic, perhaps, but at some point, Victor says, or he sort of accidentally calls Francis unimportant.
Yeah.
Which then normally wouldn't be the case, but knowing that Francis is getting way less credit than he deserves, and everyone is turning to William, that sort of becomes a powerful thing. I mean, it's not as powerful as the one with Ibsen, but it's sort of
the same kind of
function, where you misunderstand something or something powerful being said.
Yeah, and it can really, that's interesting how you can, maybe that is also something that makes Francis change, because if you push a person far enough, then it's like, okay, this is stupid. I'm not actually going to stab myself. So
Right.
this is too much. Okay, I'd rather go to jail if that's okay. That's a smaller issue.
Yep.
I mean, if you really push a man long enough or far enough, then that at a certain point that may, according to your character, happen. And
Yep.
I think when Victor says that sort of slip of the tongue or whatever, then maybe it becomes too clear for Francis. Like, am I making myself unimportant?
Yeah.
So it becomes like not like a clear, oh, you said unimportant, therefore I'm now thinking that that is changing me into being another person.
Yeah.
It's just that there's something, just saying that without explaining what effect it has on Francis directly,
Right.
has, I didn't think that before right now.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about that either.
No, so, I know more about your play than you.
Yeah. By all means, maybe you are the true. Maybe this is the situation.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
But
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. But that should be also said. You do have credit for something in this play, and I think I've told you this before. When you were on another podcast, you were talking about the sort of motive. There was a Dostoevsky book in which the main character sort of had to do something. There was something which was too important to him and too valuable not to do.
Yeah.
And I told you that helped me enormously in my own writing, because when I was doing that, I was like, why is Francis giving up so much? Like, why is he making himself so unimportant? Why is he sacrificing so much? Why is he plunging himself so much into the ground the way he's doing? And then I heard you say that, and I was like, well, obviously there has to be something that is so important to him that he has to do this.
Yeah, and going back to Ayn Rand, knowing your hierarchy of values.
Yeah.
So writing that play has this value and Roxana has this value.
Right.
Which means that he's sort of not, in some way, he's not sacrificing himself.
No, he's not sacrificing himself.
Right.
Because Roxana is his highest value.
Yeah.
Because he does love her more than anything. So he's willing to go through hell on earth for her. And then presumably he's willing to die for her in order for her to go on living.
Right.
And that is important, because if you don't have motivated characters, it's uninteresting.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you want the main characters to be passionate about something, because otherwise you don't really have a conflict.
Yeah.
And if it's just something like they're like, all right, well, take that away from me then. Or if he didn't really care about Roxana, he'd be like, all right, well, then she can go and die, and she can get the consequences of this crime. But when the drama really occurs is when you have a character who is so passionate about something, he's not willing to give it up, which is something that occurs through all of these plays, through Leonard Peikoff's course.
Yeah.
Like in Antigone. Antigone is not willing to step down. She sees it as her moral right to bury her brother despite the fact that he is a traitor. And she's willing to die for it. And if she wasn't willing to die for it, it wouldn't be dramatic. It wouldn't be interesting.
Take a pension.
Yeah. All right, leave him out there.
Yeah.
Or anything, and then I'll just go back to my life. That's what makes plays and drama and just like stories important to us, is when people care about something, when they actually have values.
Yeah.
Which is romanticism.
Right.
It's free will. You have values and you fight for them, and then something opposes you. And then you still want that value despite the opposition, because if you just meet opposition and you say, okay, no, then it's not romanticism. You don't actually care about these things. So that's what makes me passionate about writing and about reading these things, is people actually caring about something and really wanting something. Like in Cyrano de Bergerac, which is very similar to my own play in terms of plot.
I saw that.
I know. I want to say, though, I read that play after I had conceived the idea to my own play.
That's what they all say, okay.
But I might very well have gotten some sort of subconscious influence.
No, but
they're very different.
Yeah.
They're very different plays. And they end, I mean, Cyrano de Bergerac, I am nowhere near the level of Cyrano de Bergerac. That is so brilliant. Such a brilliant play, where you have like a charismatic, poetic, brave hero who loves a woman, but he's ugly. I mean, he has a deformity, and he thinks he cannot get this woman. And then she's starting to talk about, oh, there's someone I love. And then she's mentioning all these things, and he starts thinking it's about him. And he's like, I see, that might be me. and then she says, and the best of all, he's handsome. And then he knows it's not about himself.
Right.
What ends up is he has to basically help this other guy. He has to give this person who she loves the poetic strength to win her. Which is
write letters for him, for the other.
Yes, and then speak poetically for him, because he loves her so much that he's willing to do it. Like, he wants her to have love, even though he knows it is impossible. He also thinks it's impossible for himself. Just such a brilliant plot. I mean, everything that happens from beginning to end is so purposeful, and it's so powerful. And then you have the reveal at the end, again, spoiler alert, when Cyrano reveals that it was him all these years. Because Christian, I think it is, he's called, the guy who she loves. He dies in the war 15 years ago in Act 3 or 4 or something like that. And in the final act, she has been mourning for 15 years and always carrying this love letter by her chest, by her side. And then Cyrano starts, I can get tears in my eyes just explaining it. Cyrano has been struck and he's dying. So he lays in her lap, and then he's saying he wants to read that letter. And then he's starting to read that letter. She's recognizing the voice that she heard, but also it's dark, and she sees that there's no way he can read this letter. He can't see the letters. And then, so then she knows it's him as he's in his, I'm getting emotional. As he's in her lap, dying, she's realizing this man I thought was ever 15 years is really this guy. And in the way it's revealed. And then she loses him again, then and there. You have to read Cyrano the Virgin.
I do have to do that.
It is the I think Ayn Rand thought this was probably one of the absolutely greatest, if not the greatest piece, definitely the greatest play ever written, and maybe the greatest piece of art ever written. And it's so powerful.
Right.
It's so powerful. And I tried, and I was very inspired. I mean, when I realized that my situation was very inspired by this one as well, I did let myself be more inspired by it. Like, the female character in my play is named after the female character in this play, because I wanted to have some sort of homage to Cyrano, who I think Edmond Rostand, who, even though it may not have been at conception an inspiration by him, it has been an inspiration by him, because that play is magnificent from beginning to end, and absolutely every sentence is perfect. And it's a perfect plot.
Yeah.
It plays out perfectly.
Right. Well, you sold me on reading that one.
Yeah, good.
Jesus Christ. I'm so concerned with these small little examples. Like you talk about that is again a light metaphor. But the opposite way of Ibsen. It's dark and you can still read a letter.
Yes.
So there's that's an image.
Yes.
Right. And the Hjalmar taking on the lamp is an image. Or the other guy who wants truth in Wild Duck all the time, who can't. He wants to, I think it was to clean the oven, so he just puts water in it and it goes all over the floor. And you see by that action
a metaphor for
what he does to that whole family, and what he does to people around him.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that's a painting. That's an image.
Yes.
Of what that man is, and that's an image of what Cyrano is.
Yes.
Right? Which is love.
You get it.
Yeah.
You get it. I mean, you see it.
Yeah.
And you have some of these. Leonard Peikoff also gives focus to some of these, because these plays aren't just great because of the plots and the characters, but they are written poetically and beautifully. Especially, I mean, Cyrano is definitely written poetically. They're all written poetically. Perhaps not a few of the more modern ones, like Ibsen is not necessarily as poetic as Shakespeare would be. But in Othello, approaching the climax, which is awful for the spectators because we know that Desdemona is innocent and we know that she's probably going to die. Then there's a brilliant line where Othello is going into her bedroom holding like a candle. And then he says, put out the light, and then put out the light. So you have like a double meaning. It just makes everything so powerful.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, well, I haven't actually. I haven't read Antigone, but Oedipus Rex has the same thing.
Yeah.
There's that one scene where the peripeteia, the high point where everything just goes down.
Yeah.
Where Oedipus is threatening Tiresias, the blind seer,
Yep.
to reveal who killed the previous king and who. And in the he asks him, he doesn't want to say it. Tiresias doesn't want to say it, and in the end he says, "You do it. I'm going to beat you."
Yeah.
And then he said, "Okay." And then it turns and it says, "You will have a father today. You will lose everything today," and it just crashes.
Yeah.
You know, it's that. Oh my God.
And that's another way of heightening the suspense, that Tiresias doesn't want to say the truth.
Yeah.
So you know that there's some bad news coming, and he really doesn't want to say.
This is going to be bad. This is going to be bad.
He does the same in Antigone as well, where the messenger is going to tell him that Antigone is dead and your son is also dead. Well, Haman, the son of Creon, is also dead, but he doesn't want to say. And people have to like push him, and you start worried the more they push him, and the more he doesn't want to say. Like,
Tiresias is appearing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it was he who said this, but it was a messenger, and he doesn't want to say the truth.
Okay, yeah, but same point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same point. And and you get worried because he doesn't want to say the truth. Like, what is it that you don't want to say? Like, what is it that I don't want to know? Beautiful. I mean, Sophocles just constructed these simple and brilliant plots, and he put so many things in there that just heightened it.
Yeah.
Like Leonard Peikoff talks about Tiresias, that he's blind because he's a seer, and in order to be connected to the real world, he has to be blind. He has to not be distracted from this one.
Right.
So like details like this everywhere. And in great literature and great plays, and the 8 great plays that Leonard Peikoff talks about and discusses, you get these things all the time. It's a very spiritual, enriching experience.
Right. Well, this has been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
For sure, man. Oh, God. Any famous last words?
Well, I can quote my own play. At the end, when Francis has gotten finally what he was fighting after for a very long time, he says as he holds the woman he loves, "As long as we are who we are, then the world is never lost. And as long as we are who we are, Jan-Ove, the world is never lost."
Amen. Henrik Abrahamsen, thank you for coming to the Cave of Pellis.
Thank you for having me back on.
And thank you for watching. Remember, go to caveofpellis.com/subscribe and become a member today. I'll see you next month.